Morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the BCP Licensing Subcommittee. The first item on this morning's agenda is the election of a chair. Do I have any nominations, please? Councillor Moore.
Can I nominate yourself, Councillor Flagg?
That's very kind of you. Councillor Moore.
Seconder. Yes, happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Harman. Right, before we move on, can I ask the clerk to deal with the housekeeping measures, please?
Thank you. Please note this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair. For those in the room, please note if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of this building in Bourne Avenue. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2 on this morning's agenda, apologies.
So we have had an apology from Councillor Filer and Councillor Harman as First Reserve is now a member of the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest with regard to items on the agenda this morning? Thank you. Item 4, protocol for public speaking. A protocol for public speaking at meetings of the Licensing Subcommittee is included with the agenda sheet for this meeting. Item 5, Easy Tiger, 27 The Triangle, Bournemouth. An application has been received for the renewal of the Stex establishment licence for the premises known as Easy Tiger, 27 The Triangle, Bournemouth, for a further 12-month period. As the licensing authority has received one representation, this matter is brought before the licensing subcommittee for determination. I will now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. I'm Councillor David Flagg, member of the subcommittee and nominated chair.
I'm Councillor Sandra Moore, member of the subcommittee, and I'm a Camberwell Heath ward councillor.
Hi, I'm Emily Harman, Councillor Emily Harman. I am Parkstone Ward Councillor and also a member of the Licensing Committee.
I'm Susan Stockwell and I'm the objector.
Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Spencer. I'm from Easy Tiger.
Thank you. If I just run through others. Yes, first of all, Councillor Judy Richardson, who was our first reserve, not required this morning. However, she is remaining in the room for training purposes. Sarah Rogers, I believe, is on the Teams meeting with us this morning. And then if I could hand over to the legal advisor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Joanne McNamara. I'm the legal advisor to the subcommittee today.
And I'm Jo Holyoake, I'm the clerk.
Before I run through the procedure, please may I check that all persons who have given notice of their intention to speak have been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw a representation or wishes not to speak has been identified. If there are no comments, I will take this as correct. I will now explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing as follows. The licensing officer presents the report. The applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. Objector will make their representations. Questions of the objector, members of the subcommittee to go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and clerk present. Where possible, notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations. Thank you. And finally, please may I remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they have already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chair, and there will be no cross-examination of parties. I will now ask the licensing officer to present the report. Sarah, please.
Good morning. Applications made by White Tiger Limited for the renewal of the sex establishment licence held at 27 The Triangle for a further 12-month period. The premises have been operating as a licensed sex shop for approximately 15 years under the current ownership. The licence permits them to sell products, magazines, films, clothing and equipment connected with sexual activity. The application made complies with the relevant legislation, and the necessary site and newspaper notices were published in accordance with that legislation. As a result, one objection was received. The applicant has been in contact and attempted mediation with the objector in an attempt to resolve their concerns raised, and the details are included in Appendix 5. In support, a petition was signed by 17 local businesses and 172 customers. In addition, 56 individual letters of support were provided to the licensing authority as at Appendix 6. No objections were received from Dorset Police, Dorset and Wiltshire Fire Service, Environmental Health and Trading Standards, who were also consulted on the application. Any decision to refuse this renewal must be relevant to the mandatory or discretionary grounds as set out in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Do members have any questions of the officer at all? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms Rogers, can I just, in paragraph 7 of the report, you say one complaint has been received by the licensing authority in connection with these premises. I just wanted to check, is that a breach of the licence or just a complaint?
It was regarding the wording of that was being used. So it was not approved by the chair and vice chair who I consulted with. So with their request, the wording was removed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now call upon Mr. Spencer? Do you have any questions for the officer at all?
No.
Thank you. Mrs. Stockwell, do you have any questions for the officer at all?
I do have one question, and that's just to say that the officer's report recommends either to refuse or to grant the licence application. Can I just say, is it not the case that the councillors here, the committee, is also empowered to set conditions?
Is that a question?
Yes, yes. I think it has to be phrased as a question.
Mrs. Rogers?
The decision today is to either refuse or grant the application.
Thank you.
I don't think that really answers my question. I'm asking whether the committee has the power to set conditions as an alternative to granting or refusing, as part of granting, I beg your pardon.
There are discretionary conditions that can be applied. I'd have to double check that and let you know.
Are you able to come back to us fairly swiftly with that?
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you.
Yes, I will do.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, can I call upon Mr. Spencer then to address the committee, please?
Hi. The only thing I'd like to say is we've had one objection the whole time, one objection to the licence renewal in the whole time the shop's been operational, and that's all I need to say today.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Do members have any questions for the applicant at all? Councillor Moore.
Hi, can I just ask about, you say that you're currently at 27 the triangle, but prior to that you were at 8, is it that way round?
That's correct.
Yeah. How long were you at number 8 then?
I think it was 9 years.
So 9 years there, and the rest of the time you've been
Yes,
at 27, and you've had no objections
No.
in the past?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harman?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the window displays. Who takes responsibility for putting them together, and if you have any internal guidance for the people putting the displays together that sort of dictates what is and isn't allowed?
The majority of the time, apart from the Christmas windows, are supplied by our suppliers. These are mainstream suppliers who supply to other non-licensed adult shops as well. Not non-licensed shops, which aren't adult shops. So, like this, the last window display was one they used in Superdrug, so internally. So.
Thank you. And I did have another question, if that's right. So you're a member of Townlink as well, aren't you?
Yes.
And I understand as part of the licensing agreement, you have a log in the shop if there is any instances of behaviour that need logging.
Yes.
I just wanted to know if you've had reason to use the log or the Townlink.
We've only used Townlink for external issues, which we don't have to log.
And also the log within the shop. Have you had any instances, let's say within the last 12 months, of antisocial behaviour or anyone in the shop that you needed to record their behaviour for any reason? Thanks.
Any further questions? No. Mrs. Stockwell, did you have any questions for Mr. Spencer at all?
I do actually, just arising from Councillor Harman's questioning, on the not having any bad behaviour in the shop. I think probably it was couched in terms of what we think of as antisocial behaviour, with somebody, I don't know, playing up rather than straightforward theft. But I don't know if you're aware, but there is a Facebook page purporting to be for your shop, showing footage of people that you believe to be, or somebody, whoever's running the Facebook page, believes to have been shoplifting. Wouldn't you say that is, I mean, that could happen in any shop? I'm not particularly tying it to being a sex establishment. I'm just making sure that the applicant's aware of what's happening by way of external public.
Yes, these are shoplifting incidents, not.
Yes.
We wouldn't class that as.
Thanks. And could I also ask, my understanding of the licence is it requires the approval of the council for every window display. Now, can I just ask whether going forward, particularly following the complaint, you are actually, every time you dress the window, making sure, because I mean they do charge a fee to cover the work for this, your licence fee that you pay is going to the officers for approval.
I wasn't aware that every window display had to be checked in Bournemouth. It was a condition on the shop in Salisbury.
I see. Well, it may be that we've understood the conditions differently.
Sarah, are you able just to confirm with regards to shop window displays, please, regarding these premises?
Yes. So when a display is changed or the signage is changed for remarketing purposes or whatever, then we request proofs of that so that I can refer it to the chair and vice chair of the licensing committee for their prior approval.
Thank you. And just to confirm, normally we do this by via email with images of the proposals given to us for review.
Yes.
Thank you, Sarah.
That's done.
Thank you. Do you have any questions at all, Joanne, with regards to the application?
No questions, but perhaps I can clarify Mrs. Stockwell's question about the powers of the subcommittee in relation to add-in conditions. Yes, that's correct. If the renewal was granted, then paragraph 8 under the regulation, under the Act, does permit such terms and conditions that may be specified by yourselves as you see appropriate.
Thank you. Right, if there are no further questions, can I call upon Mrs. Stockwell to make your representation to the committee, please?
I'm obliged, Chair. Could I start by just asking, and I have seen the protocol for speaking, whether this morning you are interested to hear me reading the objection to you. It's not usual in this particular council, but if you want to hear it, I've got it.
Well, I'm fairly certain that all the members here present this morning would have read the information that's been provided by the officers. And if you recall, when I did address the hearing to start with, we don't want a repeat of what you've already provided. We just want you to expand on anything that you think is relevant for this morning's
Yes,
hearing.
I'm obliged, Chair. That I am in difficulties, of course, because further on in the protocol is do not add anything. So it's a bit difficult to expand without adding things. But I mean, that's possibly just a playing on words, and I can move on, sir.
So if you have anything new, then
yes,
that's fine.
Yes. So I'm confident you've all read this. Yet again, I've come to this committee with what appears to me to be an open and shut case where you can refuse on the grounds of location. And I'm very interested really in why, when your previous members of the council in full council set what they believe to be inappropriate locations for sex establishments, and yet we repeatedly see this committee licensing sex establishments at those locations. So something that came up on another hearing, not in this council, was a member of the committee asked me about harm. Now, I'd just like to say that if you are granting on this or any others on the basis that harm hasn't been proved, I never come to these committee hearings prepared to prove harm, because on my understanding, neither the legislation nor the case law requires that, and that if you do decide on the basis of whether or not harm's been proved, then we're looking at a judicial review. And I say again that I'm not in any position to fund a judicial review, so I'm not throwing my weight around when I certainly haven't got any means to do that financially. But could I just implore you to, if you do decide this on whether or not harm's been proved by the objection, that it goes in the decision notice, and then we'll know where we are, and I'll be ready to look out any proof of harm for any future application for objections. Moving on, during the mediation, the applicant did actually mention the difficulties with other shops selling, in some cases, identical products. Now, as I understand it, and your legal officer, I'm sure, will correct me or tell you that I've got it wrong later, the requirement for a sex establishment license for a sex shop is only met if we're looking at a significant amount of sex articles used for sexual activity. Now, what is significant? Is it fair, as the applicant has mentioned, that another shop can be selling without a license, whereas he has to have, or he believes that he requires a license? Now, display, how something is displayed could affect whether it's significant. Whether it's displayed at eyesight level for children in another shop could affect its significance. And what I would say about this business of having to compete with other shops is that if at any point the applicant believes he is subject to unfair competition, that he approaches your good selves, who are your officers, and says, well, look, they are selling a significant amount of product, of other products that I sell, and it's not fair. And could you please consider whether they actually, even whoever they might be, whether it's Boots, Superdrug, whoever, is selling sex articles, that they come to you and say, look, I think this is significant. Look, they've got it in the window, they've got it at eye level for children. Could you please consider licensing them? And I would say that that was the proper course, rather than trying to impress on you that he should be granted a license because other places are selling. There is quite significant variation, as I've seen it, for one shop quite nearby that a previous member of this committee mentioned. I think it was then Councillor Kelsey. I think his phrasing was along the lines of, well, there's much worse things in Ann Summers down the road. Well, the displays in Ann Summers, it's a large chain, vary from town to town. And certainly in Bournemouth, the displays, unlike other towns, are possibly touching on the point where you might be wanting to license them. And I would definitely urge the applicant to keep an eye on that, deal with the competition point. And I think that really covers everything that I wanted to say, Chair, if anyone's got any questions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stockwell. Members, do you have any questions at all for Mrs. Stockwell?
Sorry,
Councillor
sorry, Chair. I'm getting a bit confused here. I've listened to what Mr. Stockwell said, which is quite interesting and varies from you know, what you've actually put into your report. But I would just need clarification about the legal side of this. You know, I'm not sure that, you know, displays in other people's shops, have they got any relevance to this, or what sort of guidance have we got for this? Thank you.
You need to consider the applicant today that's before you. I think what Mrs. Stockwell's saying is that there's mention about other shops nearby that may sell similar items, and I think what Mrs. Stockwell's saying is, if the applicant's got concerns about those, then he should raise them with the licensing authority. I think that's what you're saying, is about that, right, Mrs. Stockwell?
Yes, I think it came up in mediation as well. Possibly I might be misremembering it.
But the members are clear, they're dealing with the application before you today. Yes.
Thank you, Joanna. Any further questions? Councillor Harman.
I have no questions. Thank you.
I have a question from the legal advisor, Joanna.
Mrs. Stockwell, in your letter of objection of the 17th of May 2024, you say, because of various apparent breaches of the licence, but you don't expand on what they are. What alleged breaches do you say?
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure that the breach that the complaint that your officer mentioned of the wording describing part of a woman's, I don't know, what do we call them, sexual organs, was inappropriate for the window, that I considered that was a breach. And I have also, although it wasn't mentioned, I've also complained of being able to see, albeit through gaps in the window display, into the shop. And I did actually send a picture of that, which the officer told me she'd shown to the chair of licensing, which and that was approved. Now, the picture was not brilliant, so it may be that it wasn't easy to see, that there were sort of gaps where you could see in, which, on my understanding of the license, was not to be permitted. So that is another breach.
Yes, please. Mrs. Rogers, would you be able to advise us regarding any recorded breaches?
Yeah, the issue with the gaps weren't considered significant enough to cause any harm or distress, and that was remedied along with the wording, which I did bring to you. I think it was yourself, Councillor Flagg, at the time, and it was approved. It was requested that the applicant remove that word and make the packaging that was on display smaller, and that was done. immediately.
Thank you, Mrs. Rogers. Mr. Spencer, did you have any questions at all for the for Mrs. Stockwell?
No, just I just wanted to say that I did invite Mrs. Stockwell to the shop to see what she was objecting against, and on the entrance of the shop, it's just cards and gifts. It's not adult products, so that's what you can see. That if Mrs. Stockwell came, accepted my invite and came along, she would actually understand the business, but she refuses.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Right. I think we'll move forward as there are no further questions to summing up. So
I do have another question, Chair.
Mrs. Stockwell.
I do have another question just arising from what your officer finished with, and that was that this issue of harm or distress not existing. Now, I appreciate that there are thresholds for officers' time to be used. I'm not suggesting that every tiny little thing when I click my fingers that an officer jumps and expends resources and time. However, I am particularly concerned that this term harm or distress has been used, because that goes back to my introduction of, are you making these decisions on the actual licensing based on harm or distress?
Sorry, that's your question?
Yes, my question is, are you making these decisions about licensing generally in sex establishment licensing based on harm or distress? Because it's my very clear position that there is no requirement to prove harm or distress for a legal decision to be made. It may be that that's the threshold for an officer to be expending time and resources on it, which I quite accept. But I just want to be sure that it's not something the officers are under the impression is necessary to prove to be able to refuse a licence application. I mean, we've had this in Poole. 2 shops went after I wrote in about being near children. So
thank you, Mr. Stockwell. Mrs. Rogers, are you able to address that question?
Yes, I can. They're just words I used. I certainly don't make decisions based on the grant or refusal of a sex establishment licence. That's not my decision to make. The photographs that you sent in were referred to the chair and vice chair, and the decision was made by them. The words harm and distress, which I just used, were merely my choice of words at that time. Apologies if it caused confusion.
Thank you, Mrs. Rogers.
Well, I do have another question arising from that. And in fact, if there's no objections, then it is the case that I believe that the officers do make decisions on grant, and that's under devolved powers from. It's only because I've objected that the councillors are making the decision rather than the officer. I believe that I may be open to correction here, but I believe that the officer makes the decision on whether to license if there's no objection.
We don't make the decision to grant a new application. If a renewal comes in and there are no objections to it, we have delegated in the scheme of delegation. Yes. It's down to an officer level to approve that, because there's nothing. It's continuing the license for a further 12-month period. As an objection comes in, we don't have that power, and it therefore falls to the licensing committee.
I see. I'm obliged. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on then to summing up. Mrs. Stockwell, is there anything else you'd like to bring to the attention of the committee with regards to your representation this morning that you may have forgotten?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Stockwell. Mr. Spencer, is there anything further you'd like to bring to the committee's attention at all regarding your application?
No, I've covered everything in my pre-licence pack.
Thank you very much. I will now conclude the hearing. At the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and the clerk to deliberate. Where possible, notification of the subcommittee's decision will be provided within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information regarding the right of appeal as appropriate. You are now free to leave the hearing. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to this meeting of the BCP Licensing Subcommittee. Item 6 on this morning's agenda, 561 Christchurch Road, Boscombe, Bournemouth. The licensing authority has received an application for a new premises licence for the premises at 561 Christchurch Road, Boscombe, Bournemouth. As the application has resulted in representations, this matter is brought before the Licensing Subcommittee for determination. I will now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. I am Councillor David Flagg, the elected chair for this morning's meeting.
And I'm Councillor Sandra Moore, and I'm a member of the subcommittee, vice chair of licensing, and a County Hall councillor.
I'm Councillor Emily Harmon. I'm a Parkstone Ward councillor and a member of the Licensing Committee.
Thank you, members. We also have Councillor Judy Richardson with us this morning, who is the reserve member. However, she's not required to participate in this morning's meeting, but is present and to observe for training purposes. Tanya?
Good morning, I'm Tanya Jardine, Licensing Officer. Thank you.
I'm Joanne McNamara, legal advisor to the subcommittee today.
And I'm Jill Holyoke, I'm the clerk.
And we also have attending this morning Josh Tetterborn. He's attending on work experience with the Legal Services Department. Welcome, Josh. For the applicant, we have on Teams. Could you introduce yourselves, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Although I think my name's come up as Paul Sherratt, I'm not sure, but I'm Jill Sherratt from Licensing Matters. We submitted the application, and I'm here in response to the objections on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. Do we have Mr. Sankarapu with us this morning?
Yeah. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, thank you. Right, other persons with us this morning. Mr. Lee Hall, thank you. I think we have other objectors with us this morning, but they're sat in the public gallery. And going back to Teams, Martha Cavell.
Hello, my name's Martha Cavell. I'm the Programme Manager for the Bournemouth Towns Fund and manage the Better Boscombe Engagement Hub at 566 Christchurch Road.
Thank you very much. Before I just run through the procedure, please may I check that all persons who have given notice of their intention to speak have been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw a representation or wishes not to speak has been identified. If there are no comments, I will take this as correct. Thank you. I will now explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking of the hearing as follows. The licensing officer presents the report. Questions of the licensing officers by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. The applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. Other persons will make their representations. Questions of other persons, members of the subcommittee to go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and the clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations, and unless anyone indicates otherwise, I will assume that that is agreed. Finally, please may I remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they have already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chair, and there will be no cross-examination. I will now ask the licensing officer to present the report. Tanya.
Thank you, Chair. So Licensing Matters submit an application on behalf of the applicant, Sai Chowdhury Group Limited, on the 23rd of May 2024. The premises were previously occupied by Carphone Warehouse, and the applicant proposes to operate as a convenience store with off-licence facility and has applied for a new premises licence to permit late-night refreshment on Friday and Saturdays, 2300 to 0200, and the off-sale supply of alcohol 0600 to 2300 hours, Sunday to Thursday, and 0600 to 0200 hours, Friday and Saturdays. The licensing office received 10 representations from other persons on the grounds that granting of the license would undermine the licensing objectives. At the time of releasing the report, the applicant was in mediation with Dorset Police, and members will note that since its release, mediation has been successful and robust conditions have been agreed and included in the supplementary info to the report. Members will note from further supplementary information provided by the applicant's agent yesterday that licensing matters have expressed concerns regarding the nature of the representations, which we have provided responses to following legal advice. They also asked for details of nearby licensed premises, which I have also provided information on. The licensing authority have been transparent, and we have not refused to provide the names and addresses, but shared all the information that we have been provided with. Ms. Sharrett has indicated that no attempt was made to obtain names and addresses of the persons making representations. However, I can assure members that I contacted all persons. I emailed every objector that I did not have addresses for on the 21st of June and requested that they provide me with their names and addresses and advised that these would be shared with the applicant's agent. However, I would not include full addresses on the public domain. From those contacted, 4 did not respond. For clarification, when we receive a representation, we review the contents to ensure that it is relevant to the licensing objectives, and we correspond with persons making representations to advise of the process and explain that their representation and details will be shared with the applicant, who may wish to contact them with a view to discuss the representation and mediate. We explained that details can only be withheld from the applicant or agent if there is genuine fear of intimidation, and ask that they confirm that to us. I emailed all persons who made representations with the standard acknowledgement letter and subsequently with the notice of hearing. Some came back to me in response, others did not. However, this is not uncommon. We do not, as a matter of course, demand addresses of the objectors. We do our best to get those details, but don't chase them further if we don't get the information. We were satisfied that the representations were relevant as they related to the likely effect of the grant of the application would have on one or more of the licensing objectives, and we did not feel they were vexatious. Section 182 guidance recommends at paragraph 9.9 that in borderline cases, the benefit of the doubt about any aspect of a representation should be given to the person making that representation. The subsequent hearing would then provide an opportunity for the person or body making the representation to amplify and clarify it. It would be for members to decide on how much weight they give to such representations in the absence of the objector to clarify any further. For information only, the licensing authority received 4 further representations. However, these were rejected for not meeting the criteria and 1 for being late. General concerns were about the need for another off license in the area and not specific to the licensing objectives. When representations mentioned competition and the need for another licensed premises in the area and its detrimental effect on other businesses, we advised that the issue of business competition or need does not fall under any of the licensing objectives and can therefore not be considered under the Licensing Act. This was the case with the representation made by Mr. Hall. I advised him that the issue of business competition, need or job security is not relevant to the licensing authority to consider in discharging its licensing function, and we could not therefore accept this comment as a relevant representation. He did, however, mention the impact the new premises would have on the locality, namely the potential increase in antisocial behaviour, which falls under the Prevention of Crime and Disorder licensing objective, and that part of the representation was accepted. We received no other representations from any other persons or responsible authorities. Members are asked to consider whether to grant this application, and should the licence be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with their licence and any conditions attached to it, they will be aware that any responsible authority or other persons may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Tanya. Do members have any questions for the officer?
No, I don't. Just a lot of what you mentioned, I did have questions on, so thank you for addressing that.
Thank you. Mr. McNamara.
Thank you. Just to clarify one point, just so it's clear for everyone, out of the 10 representations, 6 have provided names and addresses and 4 have only provided names and email addresses. Is that correct?
The others provided address. Some didn't provide full addresses, but provided the road they lived in, and despite asking for full addresses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Sorry about this. I think I've just changed my mind. I was just going to ask in the area whether or not there are any other premises nearby that are open until 2 a.m. Are you able to, that have got licenses? Yeah. Thank
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes. So there are premises that are actually open 24 hours a day. There are a couple of premises that are licensed for 24 hours, and others will close early. If you want me to go through the whole list, I can provide you that. I've got a few, so it's not just but generally there are some that do open beyond midnight.
They are very close to the
Yes,
to the
they are
site.
close to the
Okay.
premises.
The point I was trying to make was whether or not they were going to be on their own. The only one that was open until 2 a.m, but that's clearly not the case.
No, that is not the case.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Can you just going on from that? And I don't know whether you can say or not, but are any of the representations involved in those local businesses? Do you have any knowledge of that?
It is my understanding that one of them may be, yes. So the name is the same. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, did you have any questions for the officer at all?
No. So it's not good at this sort of thing sometimes. I'm not sure, to be honest. So
Okay, thank you very much. Miss Sherritt, did you have any questions at all for the officer?
Chair, I don't have questions. I do want to respond to what's being said. Yeah, so I'll do that whenever you decide.
Well, you will be next up, Mrs. Sherritt. So would you be kind enough to address the committee, please, with regard to your application?
Yeah, well, prior to making my application, I do want to respond to the issue about vexatious, because I think your licensing authority are missing the point and failing to address the 3 elements that they are there to assess separately. They're looking at whether something is relevant. Yes, we give the benefit of the doubt to people who perhaps are skirting around the licensing objectives. The comments might not quite make it. We give them the benefit of the doubt, of course. I've said in my documentation, and I hope you've had a chance to read it, that the tests of irrelevant or frivolous, you can assess by the words on the page. You can look at it and you can say, that isn't relevant, that isn't, that is or isn't frivolous. It is entirely different, and this is the point that's being missed here, entirely different when you're considering the issue of vexatious. And before and I won't be long on this, Chair, but I do want to just put a caveat on all of this that I'm about to say. I am not concerned about these objections. I don't think they're fatal in any way to this application. We have enough detail of who these people are, pretty much, to ensure that our application isn't at risk. And I challenge these points because the officers in acting the way that they are continuing to do, even here today, they're allowing, even if it's 4, even if it's 1 or 2, they're allowing those few people to make detrimental comments behind the cloak of an anonymity. Your decision is does an email tell us who that person is? It
Miss
clearly does. It clearly doesn't. Yeah.
Miss Sherritt, sorry to interrupt. We have a
Yep.
problem with the Teams. Officers have asked me to just pause the meeting for a moment.
Thanks,
Okay.
Chair. It's just to advise there is an unknown person waiting in the lobby on Teams. So if we could just adjourn for a couple of minutes, if everybody stays on the call, I can then admit that person and we can establish who they
I
are.
I can tell you who it is, actually. I've got her name here. It's a colleague of mine who just wants to watch the hearing.
Okay,
I think
in that
she's
case,
maybe come in on the Teams rather than looked at it on the internet, hasn't she?
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So through you, Chair, if she could perhaps leave the call and just watch it on the live broadcast.
I'll tell her, sorry.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you for that. It might be a good point, actually. I omitted to offer Martha Cavell the opportunity to ask the licensing officer if she had any questions. Could I just ask Martha, do you have any questions at all for Tanya?
No, I don't. Thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to proceed, please?
Thank you,
Jill.
So I don't know how far I got there, but just basically they're looking at the wrong test. And when you're looking at vexatious, what you don't do is rely on what a person who's making representations is willing to give you. That's not the correct way of approaching it. You have to ensure that these proceedings are transparent and fair for all. And I mean that for you as a committee. You only have to ask yourself a basic question, Chair. If you look at Piyush War, I don't know how to pronounce his name or her name, to be honest, because I don't know who they are. They've claimed they're going to be disturbed. Well, we don't know if they're going to be disturbed. You can't assess that. You don't know who they are. And what the licensing officers should do, rather than relying on what they are given, they should say to people, if you're not willing to give your address, then unfortunately your representation will have to be rejected because we don't know who you are. And that is what is happening here. And that's why I put all the documentation. I'm pressing on the point because of the fairness and transparency angle for the applicant, but also for, more importantly, for you being able to scrutinise the representations. You can't do that. You are going to look at those 4 representations with your eyes closed, as I am, and it was the responsibility of your officers to dig deeper in relation to the assessment of vexatious. I'm not talking about irrelevant. I'm not talking about frivolous, and the paperwork that I've put in there demonstrates that point. Are they permitted to be anonymous? No, they're not. So that's it, really. I think I've made my point. I'll go on to the application. Regardless, as I've said, of the representations, it's a very, very robust application in its own right. I will just, as quickly as I can, summarise. Just one sec, because I've got the paperwork all mixed up. I'm not going to try and pronounce my client's name. I know him as Raj, if that's okay with you, and he is the director of Sai Chawadeshwari Group Limited. Forgive me. His background is significant. He's got bags of experience over decades. He's worked and owned convenience stores for over 20 years. He's had a personal license since 2013. And from 2010, he went from just managing them on behalf of other people to actually owning them. He doesn't have any other businesses at present, and he chose this particular site, which is closed, has been closed for a couple of years, I do believe, and he sees it as an opportunity to provide a service that would be of value to local people. It's at a central location, and he only lives 4 miles away, so he's local. He and his wife are both involved. He is dependent on this license today, otherwise the whole business plan cannot happen. If it does, he is going to renovate that property, which I will say, although not particularly relevant to the licensing objectives, but got to be of benefit to the local area, because he's going to put £80,000 into creating a brand new modern facility. He's going to open the store, if you grant this today, as an independent business. The £80,000 will ensure it's all brand new. It's going to be a convenience store, so alcohol is not the only focus of this business. So it's everything: fresh, frozen food, toiletries, the ability to pay bills, send packages. alcohol's usually around about 15%, but and then, like I say, not the intended because so that the money, the significant investment will be on CCTV, as you would expect, all remote and digital, till prompts, an electronic till system, and then you have all of the policies and procedures that you would expect, such as refusals registers, staff training. He will be doing through Licensing Matters. That'll be an e-learning platform, and of course Challenge 25. So those kind of measures are put within our operating schedule as basically a minimum, as a starting point. But as you know, the police have also, I've been speaking with the police, and we've come to an agreement to improve the operating schedule according to the needs of your town as well. I'll come to that in a second. In terms of staffing, he will be full-time. His wife, Geetha, will be with him as well. She has a personal license as well. And then they plan on taking another full-time member of staff, maybe two. They're going to have to see how the business goes. Once they're up and running, they'll assess the staffing needs as they go, but they will be local people who will be employed. I'm grateful that one of the councillors mentioned the hours, and I'm going to come to the representations at the moment, because the representations that I have been creating about are generated by the fellow shopkeeper who has 24 hours very, very close by. So, you know, he's asking for certainly 6 till 2 Friday and Saturday, I think less than that during the week, but it's not something new in the area. So to go back to the police conditions, they basically, what tends to happen is if we put a condition on for training, they'll come back and say, can we have our own version? So you've got a very comprehensive training condition, which means that staff have to have their training refreshed annually. So it's not just a training and then you go and you're left. They have to have it refreshed every year. You've got the incident log, Challenge 25, poster, CCTV, people being present who can work the CCTV. That was very important to the licensing officer. And documented checks of the CCTV, and obviously the data will be retained for 31 days. The condition that was non-negotiable from the police's point of view was the no sale of beer, lager and cider above 5.5%. We don't accept those as a matter of course. There has to be reason for it, and there clearly was reason. I think maybe you might hear this from the lady from Better Boscombe, but the police want to address the issue of street drinkers, for want of a better phrase, and we've done that by accepting that condition. I totally understood where she was coming from on that. So we agreed all of those conditions. So that's the application, and the applicant, he doesn't particularly want to speak today. He's very nervous. He'd rather me do it. I don't know if you'd have any more questions. I think I've covered it pretty thoroughly. In terms of the representations, yeah, I'll be interested to hear from the gentleman who is there, but certainly the most of these objections are vexatious, although we've not been able to prove that. We have the two guys who they own, I think, and you forgive me here because there's 2 licenses, but the licensing officer might be able to help. There's Booze Vegas, these are the 24-hour ones, and there's Bosque Vegas. And the gentleman at the top of the list, the first objector and his brother have put an objection in. Clearly vexatious. They're hiding behind them. You know, look, it becomes relevant if they reference the licensing objectives, but we have to look at the motivation behind it, and they're doing it because they don't want their business to be damaged. Would be my submission on that. And then what they've done is rounded their staff up, and the ones that we don't have the addresses for or any further detail for, the people who haven't got back to the licensing authority, which it doesn't surprise me because I do believe they are staff from those businesses, but I haven't been able to prove that. So I can only make that submission to you like that. In terms of, you know, there are a couple of genuine representations on there. Certainly Better Boscombe, I can appreciate the concerns that they would have because of the work that they do. And I want to say on behalf of the applicant that that's not lost on him. But the fact is that objecting to a good operator coming into an area is not the way of tackling these issues. The licensing system is permissive. It's, you know, that we can't object. It's all down to competition, how many people sell alcohol. But the point is that a good operator makes the situation better, not worse, because you've got another set of eyes and ears, responsible people, you know, looking after these issues as well, in tandem with organisations like such as Better Boscombe. So there may be issues in the area, of course, but a good operator is going to be an asset in that regard. You have a retailer who is local. He wants to make the best for the town, comes with significant experience, a flawless record. He doesn't have any problems in his history. He'll be contributing to the economy, employing local people. It's a very, very robust application. And of course, you've already been, you've had the power to review referenced, and I would usually end with that is the reason that you can grant a license and have confidence is that you've got the power of review should it be that this shop opens and then there's all sorts of problems and it's obvious that it's been caused. Anyone has actually, Better Boscombe has the power to review the license. So that's the application really, Chair. If you've any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you, but yeah.
Thank you, Jill. Can I first ask Tanya, are you able to just confirm the licensing times that was mentioned by Jill Sharrett?
Yes, so Bost Vegas and Booze Vegas both have 24-hour licenses. Yes, Jill is correct.
Thank you for that. Do members have any questions for the applicant at all?
Yes, I do. I appreciate you said Mr. Sankarapu is feeling a bit nervous, but I would appreciate if he was able to speak to us.
Yeah.
Because obviously one of our roles today is to be satisfied that he would carry out the licensing objectives as they are before us.
Of course.
So
Yeah, of course.
yeah, if that's possible, I would.
Go ahead.
I'd like to understand a bit more about his experience, because you mentioned that he's got bags of experience and a flawless record. I'd like to hear from him what his history has been in dealing with licensed premises, just so we can get a better understanding of his professional experience. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Would you be
Hello,
kind
hi
enough to?
everyone. It's Tyagaraja Sankarapu.
Do you want to just tell the committee about your experience, Raj?
Yeah, sure. I've started working from past 2005 and as a shopkeeper, and I've started my own business from 2010. So I owned a fuel station 2010 in near Southampton, Bishop's Waltham. So after that, like took the premises of Pool BP in near the Pool Hospital. So which I took the first my personal license from there, and I've just as a DPS from there. So until 2016, I was working there as a DPS and I was running my own business. After that, I took a break of 1 year. Then I came back again to the fuel station industry through the Rontech Group, in which I was running the fuel station near the Ringwood by the motorway. And I took the Par Garage Group, one more site in Romsey as well, which I was running until 2023, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sankarapu. Have we any questions at all?
Yes, if I can ask another one. You mentioned, Ms. Sharrat, that Mr. Sankarapu lives 4 miles away from the location of the premises. I just I'd be interested to know if you spent much time in the area at night time, so you're familiar with the sort of behaviours lots of customers in that area might exhibit.
Yes, please.
So just to check, sorry, maybe that was a bit of a confusing question. Have you been in the area where the premises is late at night and sort of seen the behaviour of people in that area?
Yep, a few times I've been there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Sankarapu. The plan that you've submitted with your application is it's a generic shop fitting plan. It gives the location of spirits behind the cash point, I just wondered how many bays do you think that you will be earmarking for the display of wines and beer?
2 bays, one for the spirits and one for the wines, please.
But yeah, the spirits are behind the cash point. Yeah. But what about beers and wines? Will they be adjacent to the cash point or?
No. Wines will be right at the back, behind the wall, right at the back.
Yeah. That does concern me in as much that, providing you've got your CCTV in operation, I would prefer to see the wines and beers down by the cash point so you can see exactly what's going on. That's just my personal opinion.
I can answer this, Chair, because I asked him this very question yesterday.
Thank you.
And he's going to have them a little bit directly next to the till, and they'll be down that back wall with the wines, and then they're going to be on the gondolas directly in front, so that the staff will be able to see them, and obviously they'll be covered by CCTV. Because I get where you're coming from. The supervision of alcohol is important, so we will be able to supervise them.
Thank you for that. Any further questions from members?
Yeah, could I just ask, could you actually name the licensing objectives, please? Not the agent, the applicant.
Yeah,
Can
crime
you
and
name it
disorder.
for me? Can you name the licensing objectives, please?
Yeah, first thing is the crime and disorder. Second thing is public safety, public nuisance, and the prevention of harm from children.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Mr. Hall, did you have any questions at all for the applicant? No problem. Can I ask, are there any questions at all from, can I go to Martha? Martha, do you have any questions for the applicant at all?
Thank you, Chair. It was good to see that this is a responsible applicant, and you mentioned in your representation that you can help with addressing reducing street drinking. I wondered if you could provide some more details of this.
Yeah, well, I say addressing street drinking, he's already done that as far as he is able by way of the condition. So by not selling the products that the street drinkers want, they won't be attracted to his shop, and that it is the most powerful tool he possibly can have, really. If there are any street drinkers around, then obviously he'll have to assess that depending on if they go in, if they don't. Obviously, if they're on the street, then that's a matter for the police. But all he can do is if they do come in and they're drunk, he won't serve them according to the law. But genuinely, I having spoke to the police officer, having that condition on the licence is really the strongest thing that he can do. He's happy to report back to the police, to work with the police or whoever, any other agencies that are there,
Thank you. Councillor Harman has a further question.
Yes, thank you. I just have another question. Can you give us some clarity on staffing levels in the premises? Because I know you mentioned at the beginning it will be Mr. Sankarapu and his wife working there.
Yeah.
And there was mention of maybe a third person full-time if they can afford it, or will it be a case that there definitely will be that person?
No, it's not if they can afford it. I mean, I said possibly another full-time with a part-time. Until they get going, it's impossible for them to know. So that is the basis on their business plan at the moment. That is the basis upon which they're going to operate. I think you'll be aware that shopkeepers work very, very long hours. So in the hands of him and his wife and these 2 other people, they'll see how they go, and then they'll assess it from that point onwards. We can't give definites on things like this because you just don't know how busy the shop's going to be.
Thank you. And just for clarity, will there be a minimum of 2 people in the store at any one time?
Not at all times necessarily, because again, you know, at 6 in the morning, you might not need 2 people. So again, it's something that is, it's a matter for the shopkeeper. He will, I'm sure, staff it sufficiently at all the times. You know, if it's later on, I mean, it's busiest, be at his busiest kind of 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, won't it, at the weekend? Those are the times he'll focus staffing and having perhaps more, but he'll just have to, again, assess what happens and what the you know, the flows of the use of the premises are during the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd like to invite Mr. Hall to address the committee, please, with regards to your representation. Yeah. Okay. What we'll do is we'll ask Martha to address the committee first of all. We'll give you a bit of time just to refer to your information that you have. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Would you like me to begin?
Yes, please, Martha.
Thank you. The Boscombe Engagement Hub is located at 566 Christchurch Road, so it's diagonally opposite the premises at 561 Christchurch Road. We have a lot of experience of working with people in the local area to deliver a government-funded regeneration programme aimed at addressing the area's multiple social needs. We have become aware since we've been there since 2022 that there are very high levels of unreported as well as reported crime in the area, and particular issues relate to shoplifting and also street drinking. And this is created by the disproportionately large unemployed population. Nearly 10% of the population in this ward is unemployed, and they tend to live in the high number of poor quality housing in the area. So it means that a lot of activities where they may normally take place in people's homes do take place on the street. So a lot more people are eating and drinking on the street and buying food more regularly because they don't have cooking or storage facilities for their food. Excuse me. So in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder, we do witness on a daily basis people openly drinking, dealing and taking drugs, causing antisocial behaviour in terms of verbal and physical abuse to members of the public. And this has included members of staff in our hub, and they have been crimes have been reported, and that's been at all times of the day. In relation to the prevention of public nuisance, we have reported on a number of occasions antisocial behaviour, and that does include people drinking, abusing members of the public, not disposing of bottles properly, and generally creating quite an austere atmosphere in parts of Boscombe. Public safety is our real concern here, as well as the protection of children from harm. We often come to work where there's broken glass and empty alcohol bottles outside the front of our property, which we have to sweep away. So that'll be after we've left the premises at 5 o'clock. So it's stuff that's happening in the evening and during the night time. Antisocial behaviour hotspot is directly at the rear of this premises on Ramelia Lane as well, where a number of youths have gathered to drink alcohol, smash bottles and shouting. And a female resident has stated that she's afraid to leave her premises at times. I wouldn't be surprised if she's one of the people that have objected but don't want to disclose their name. We've had people coming into the hub who have said they're scared of intimidation and they do not want to provide their names to licensing hearings as well. So that is a real concern. In relation to public safety, the NHS are about to convert the inside of the BCHA building, which is opposite this, into an emergency mental health intervention centre. And there is therefore concern at the number of licensed premises in close proximity to this facility that is there to help vulnerable people in crisis situations. And in relation to the protection of children from harm, the Central Boscombe area is a pedestrian thoroughfare, and it's got a large number of school children that you will see on a daily basis walking to and from school. A lot of children do visit McDonald's. You know, that's one of the sort of accessible, affordable places that they might go at the weekends and in the evenings. And so they do congregate in the licensed seating area outside of McDonald's as well. We do have a lot of children who do get caught up in drunken situations sometimes, and we're really concerned that that could be exacerbated by the proposal. In addition to this, and finally, we have a charity called the My Little Teddy Charity, which is at 569 Christchurch Road. So it's just about 4 doors down from here. And that is supported housing for vulnerable children being rehoused. And there are some flats up there for some very vulnerable families. We're really concerned that this proposed licensed premises is very near to that. And there are a lot of family flats in the upper floors of the premises. For example, opposite us in the KFC, there are definitely family homes there. So, I mean, and then finally, in response to the applicants, just some of the things that you raised. Yeah, we appreciate that the unit has been vacant for a long time. Our programme is addressing dereliction through giving significant grants to the renovation of these properties, including this property. And of course, we are striving to reduce and address dereliction through our programme, and we believe that this will be successful and doesn't require an additional licensed premises to do this. And, you know, we agree that, you know, it's really important for people to run premises that live locally. And I would say that the characteristics, as you've raised at Boscombe, are really different. You know, it's we find it a really challenging place to work. You know, it can be, there's some quite frequent difficult situations. So, you know, if you did grant this license, please make sure the licensee has measures in place to protect themselves as well, because we've had to put measures in place within our premises to make sure that our staff are protected and, for instance, have a safe room to run to quite easily as well. So thank you for listening to me and for considering the issues that we have.
Thank you, Martha. Do members have any questions for Martha at all? No.
Second.
Jill, did you have any questions at all? No, thank you. Thanks very much for your representation, Martha. I will now return to Lee. Lee, I think it would be fair to say that all three of us up here know exactly what you're going through. It's a daunting experience for a lot of people. You know, we've got lots of years experience now on this, but maybe you want to just make reference to you know, the item that you sent into the council with regards to your concerns and your fellow objectors' concerns. Happy to do that. If you could use the microphone for recording purposes, it'd be great.
Yeah, local C said we're concerned about the local community with families, with locally don't want to be mean to them, the homelessness, these alcoholics all hanging about outside the shops, drinking, taking drugs, families getting targeted for money and that, beggars. Yeah, that's what we're concerned about as well. It's what she said as well about the community, all hanging outside McDonald's, targeting them, and like begging them to buy them alcohol. And we get a bit of trouble as well with that. With the drunks coming in, trying to get stuff, we do kick them out of the shop, refuse them. Then they get members of the public to come in the shop to buy them alcohol. Obviously, we can't stop that because there's asking out on the street, and especially with families as well. That's our main concern.
Okay, Lee, thank you very much for that. If you could just knock your microphone off. I'm sure members are very grateful that you've managed to just bring those points to our attention. Are there any questions at all?
Hi Lee, I'm Emily. Just can I ask, do you live or work close to this premises?
Yes, I do.
Can I ask, is it quite close to it? Is it on the?
Very close, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions at all, Jill?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to ask Lee where he works, please.
Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Don't know if you heard that. Las Vegas.
Yeah, he works in the 24-hour off license.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Right. If there are no further questions, what I'd like to do is move on to summing up. Lee, is there anything else you'd like to add that you may have forgotten, or with regards to bringing anything to the attention of the committee at all?
No comment. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Thank you. Martha, is there anything else you'd like to add at all?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Jill, is there anything else that you'd like to bring to the attention of the committee?
I just want to make a few closing points really quickly. Yeah, it's mainly in relation, because I'm going to come to the validity of the other objections in a moment, but it's in relation to what Martha's eloquently put forward on behalf of Better Boscombe. And it's not, I said it before, it's not lost on us what you're all about, and we don't dispute any of what you experience at all. But you know, as I said, a good operator is going to come and hopefully fight that fight along with you, and he will be an asset. All of the responsible authorities have had a look at this, including assessing children from harm. We've got Challenge 25 to address that. And the police have quite rightly been in touch and discussed it in detail with us. Convenience stores, as much as you might not like them because they sell alcohol, they do exist everywhere in this country. They provide a very valuable service for the families. But yes, they have to uphold the licensing objectives, and that's the assessment of this committee today. In terms of the representations, you have Masood Motgi, I've got my facts straight this time, Mosen Motgi, they're the owners or they're brothers, and they own the 24-hour booze shop. They have approached Baram Safri and Beruz Safri to make an objection. And if you look at those 4 objections, they're worded the same. And you can see they're basically a petition. They say about the potential approval of an alcohol licence in exactly the same way. You can see that the representations from Lee Hall, George Soys, Piyush Wag, and not so much Margin, but certainly those other 3, they're very, very short. You've heard that Lee works at Booze Vegas, and they, in our submission, are all part of the vexatious response to this application. So in response mainly to the Better Boscombe representation, it's just a matter of hopefully, having heard about the applicant, it will reassure you, and he is more than happy to come and speak with you. You can come and visit, anything at all that you want to do, because I think we've demonstrated that the licensing objectives will be upheld. Licensing is permissive, like I said, so the power of review is there should he not do what he's telling you he's going to do today. Should that not happen, then you can quite easily pull him back to this committee for him to answer any of the failings. So it is a robust application, and I would ask you to grant it in the terms that it has been sought and with the conditions agreed with the police. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. I will now conclude the hearing. At the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and clerk to deliberate. The decision will be conveyed to you in writing as explained earlier. You are free to leave, and thank you for your attendance. Thank you.